The following is a presentation of the Roanoke chapter of the National Railway Historical Society, striving to preserve a vital part of American history. Of the many chapters across the United States belonging to the NRHS, the Roanoke chapter is truly one of the largest and busiest. 1991 proved to be another busy and rewarding year. This is the year-end review. Roanoke, Virginia is home to this active bunch, often referred to as Star City of the South. Roanoke, Virginia is rich in railroad history. Today, modern diesels pull coal and other types of freight through this part of southwest Virginia, an area once known as America's last holdout to giant steam power. The Virginia Museum of Transportation to the left of these tracks give folks a reminder of times long gone. The Norfolk and Western is now the Norfolk Southern Corporation, and the huge East End shops still stand today. The Norfolk and Western's fine home-built steam locomotives were built here. Other pieces of history, like the Grand Hotel Roanoke, awaits reopening, scheduled for the mid-1990s. The old train station is closed. Our once heroes of the rails have been replaced by pilots. And if that's so, then why do people love trains so much? What is it that's so special about them? Trains attract the old and the young, both the veteran riders and the first-timers. Why is it when a steam locomotive comes through town, people rush to see it and to step up and take a picture of it? Explain the love behind this caboose to have it displayed in a faraway place called the Delmarva Peninsula, hundreds of miles away from the mountains that local folks call the Blue Ridge. Still, why do people love trains so much? There are countless answers to that question, but as long as there are people who love to ride them and people to maintain and operate them, that's probably all that matters. Now, let's take a look at 1991. As always, each year starts off at the siding, storage, and maintenance facility for the chapter's coach fleet. This was once the site of American Viscose, one-time world's largest man-made silk plant. The plant closed after 1958, but the yard provides adequate storage these days for the chapter's excursion equipment. The winter months provide time off to catch up on repairs and the constant attention that the cars cry out for. Like the chapter, the mechanical committee is made up of volunteers, led by John Garrett, as seen here preparing work which is usually done 98% of the time outdoors. The year's big project was the rebuilding of the interior of Coach 537, along with the new air conditioning and electrical systems that were installed. The 537 was once a Norfolk and Western car, and one that saw the first days of the Powhatan Arrow, and later the merger with the Wabash Railroad. Most of these smooth-sided lightweights, as they were called, saw service up to 1971. These pictures, courtesy of the Sam Putney Collection, show Coach 537 as a grand lady of the rails. However, in 1991, it will take the months leading up to September before the car is ready to haul happy excursion riders behind great steam locomotives such as the 611 and 1218. Many jobs have to be done. The old floor is removed. The open and shut windows once installed for rail fans are taken out. Those windows allowed rainwater to seep in and cause rust damage. Steam heating is removed and replaced with electrical heat. Each person has a job, whether it be electrical, painting, flooring, air conditioning, or windows. It is the combined efforts from those who attended this project that will turn Coach 537 into a fine passenger car. An unused baggage car provides a work area for repairing and reassembling seats. Every seat has been inspected, and in most cases taken apart to be cleaned before arm cushions and seat cushions are returned and bolted down to the arms. Walls are sanded, and old rust areas are sprayed with primer. It's a lot of work that takes a lot of personal time. Pride and patience are needed here. Windows are heavy and expensive. Dirt and foreign matter are swept away so that when the window is gradually set in place, a good watertight fit is assured. It took many weekends to install the windows, over 18 of them to put in place. To do the job right, you have to do the job right the first time. There won't be any second chances later on when the car is in service several states away. Soon, several set screws are put in place around the window's edge. The window shades are kept high and out of the way, but they too will be cleaned, and the tedious job of rolling them up and placing the shades' edges in their tracks is waiting. And finally, the cover template is installed. Even Chapter President Paul Howell gets in on the action, seen here shining up the supports for the yet-to-be-installed seats. There is a lot of dirty work that is involved in returning an old passenger car into a showroom piece of art. Mechanical Committee Chairman John Garrett can tell you it took a lot of dedication and love from everybody in this project to do a restoration job of this size. From installing auxiliary power equipment on the outside to trimming up things on the inside. The rewards of all these labors will not be seen until the last day. Interior lights are checked out and will soon be in full working order. A careful hand on the original glass lenses add to the finishing touch. New electrical baseboard type heat units are now in place, along with a new red floor. The center aisle is original and it was decided to be saved. More evidence of the care put into this project. Paint and grease are scrubbed away by hand, one at a time. Seat assemblies are brought over from the baggage car by pickup truck, and any unsightly dirt is blown away with an air hose. Many of the folks in this scene will admit putting a 10-speed bicycle together would be easier. The seat assemblies are big, bulky, and heavy, and soon tend to have a mind of their own insofar as not going where they're supposed to go. But through it all, the seats are installed. As each one is completed inside, more seats are brought in from the outside. Underneath the car, the work continues. Air tanks must be in good condition. Foreign matter and rust must be blown out to assure that the air brakes will work. Water tanks for drinking and lavatory use must be in proper working order, along with the air conditioning and power supply systems. All must be operational before the car ever leaves Roanoke. It is nearly September, and the 537 is completed. For the most part, summer is almost gone, a time where people take vacations, travel to amusement parks, and to the beach. But not for this bunch, for they have decided to stay in Roanoke and proudly take on a project that consumed both time and personal free days without a second thought. Once this car was red, then blue, then red again. In its lifetime, steam locomotives disappeared. Wars were fought. A man landed on the moon. And steam locomotives have come back, and so has the 537. This is their reward for all the hours of hard labor, the scraped knuckles, and the sore backs. Soon the 537 will be taken from Roanoke to the suburban surroundings of Alexandria, Virginia. There, the car will meet steam giant number 1218 and its passenger train and become another coach in the train's consist. The Roanoke chapter has once again preserved a vital piece of American history, a vintage rail car for carrying people, some of whom have ridden many times before. For others, it will be their first trip. Thanks to Callenbeck Publishing Company and WMVS TV10 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the weekly TV series Tracks Ahead began airing in Roanoke on January 5, 1991, over Blue Ridge Public Broadcasting stations in Southwest Virginia. The Saturday evening program carried a wide array of railroad topics, with show host Chuck Zener. Real trains and model trains were always featured. And as always, broadcasting this interesting program locally was made by support from the Roanoke chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. An organization is not complete without a newsletter. A newsletter keeps the members of such a group informed on the latest current events and provides great reading as well. The Roanoke chapter thanks editor Richard Schell and his staff for providing one great paper all year long. Proudly titled Turntable Times, Richard made sure every monthly issue had a great cover photo too, such as this old Virginian juicer, now just a memory. Present-day motor power was never passed up either, including today's steam power. The April issue of Turntable Times showed a picture of the First Street Bridge in Roanoke. This bridge was later raised for double-stack trains. It's already April and time for the Appalachian region of the National Railway Historical Society to hold its first ever mini convention in Winston-Salem, North Carolina on April 26th, 27th, and 28th for Appalachian Region NRHS members only. The Appalachian region consists of local chapters from such cities as Asheville, Bristol, Johnson City, Greensboro, Charlotte, Winston-Salem, Lynchburg, Roanoke, and Bluefield. Railroading and modern-day steam excursions are commonplace to this area. This event gave the local chapters an opportunity to share the experience together. Engine number 611 could not make the convention as planned. The mighty workhorse number 1218 substituted for the 611, and it was hard to find a real disappointing face on the convention trip from Winston-Salem to the historic Spencer Shops. An evening photo session in the cool Winston-Salem night was also included. But meanwhile, back in the mountains of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke radio stations were telling people of a much larger event soon to come. The giant Lady of Steel was going home.
It came to visit us last September. For 2 days it was here. Then it left. Now get ready, for in the month of May, it comes back, Roanoke. The world's largest operating steam locomotive returns for 2 great days of fun. It's the Norfolk and Western 1218, operated by the Norfolk Southern Corporation and sponsored by the Roanoke chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. Saturday, May 11th, the big Lady of Steel takes her train on a round trip to Bluefield, West Virginia. This is mountain railroading at its best. Climbing the Christiansburg grade, running through the New River Valley, and up and around the mountain into Bluefield. Sunday, May 12th, the 1218 train travels northward on a round-trip adventure to Glasgow, Virginia, through the scenic Shenandoah Valley. Bring your camera. At Glasgow, passengers will enjoy a chicken dinner, included in the ticket price. Tickets are now on sale. For more information, call area code 703-366-2169 or 389-3935.
This trip to Glasgow, Virginia, and the trip on the day before to Bluefield, West Virginia, were both a great success for the Roanoke chapter. But it takes months of planning, phone calls, and advertising to make it all work. An example is the superb coverage of the Glasgow trip in an issue of Roanoke magazine. Chapter Vice President Gary Gray made the arrangements to have the staff of the magazine ride along on the trip to ask questions and to take pictures all day. The result was an article and coverage one could only dream for. Readers from all over the state, from Bristol to Alexandria and from Richmond to Lexington, could see what it's like to ride on a real steam-powered train. The chapter also issued out over 65 press releases to various newspapers in the eastern U.S. Planning efforts also included mentions of the event on local TV newscasts and a radio ad campaign in the Roanoke area. The following Monday, under the leadership of Stan Brodsky, the Virginia Museum of Transportation sponsored a one-way school children's trip from Roanoke to Bluefield. The Roanoke chapter provided the car host, and some members came as clowns just for the kids. This was a special trip, and for the ones who were there, it provided some very special memories. It took an entire day to load and unload these children from one town to the next, just from Roanoke to Bluefield, but it sure was worth it. Imagine the look on a child's face as this great train rounded a bend and blew its lonesome whistle way off in the distance. The great train ride carried on, and after every stop, car hosts and clowns said goodbye to their special friends. From one event to another, 1991 moved along. It didn't hesitate for one moment. And the hot days of June were continued on Coach 537. And in July, the 13th and 14th meant Railvan Weekend at the historic Spencer Shops, Spencer, North Carolina. These were the shops of the Southern Railway, located midpoint between Washington and Atlanta. Today, trains don't come to the shops anymore unless you're a special train with a special invitation. Such was the case in July of 1991. The shops welcomed the Roanoke chapter to come down for this rare event, along with operating Alco T6 switcher number 41. There were freight pulls and caboose hops, and a lot of fun. Chapter member Bill Mason captures all the action.
Southern FP7 6133, Spencer, North Carolina.
Overall, this was a great weekend. It was a chance for Roanoke people to meet with outside people and share that common interest, the love of trains. Meanwhile, as the hot summer months rolled on, back in Roanoke, an issue of Combat Publishing Trains magazine had caught everyone's attention. Inside, an article covered railroad operations in Saudi Arabia. However, the attention getter was not how the trains endure the heat nor the sand. And nor was it the excellent pictures of the railroad's variety of motor power, both new and old. Instead, there was a smaller photo that Roanoke chapter members looked at, a tail-end observation car void of paint and markings. This was one of the only two observation cars built for the Norfolk and Western steam-powered Powhatan Arrow. Of the two cars, this is the only one left, and not compatible for desert running, it sits. The photo started quick action, and with the help of the Roanoke chapter, Ward Armstrong, and several other important key factors, negotiations are underway to try to get the car back to Roanoke. No promises are being made, and only time will tell. But what a sight it would be to have the 611 pull an excursion train in the 1990s, and have a once-lost piece of history proudly trailing along, bringing up the rear markers, in a place where people remember it well. The 1991 NRHS convention was held in Huntington, West Virginia, August 7th through the 10th. Thanks to the Collis P. Huntington chapter, CSX, and Norfolk Southern, this was an event full of excitement with 4 mainline steam excursions and great steam locomotives. There was something for everyone.
Okay, great. I think Diane's going to go to see it. Are you with them?
Convention trips originated from both Huntington and Canova. The Canova yards of Norfolk Southern kicked off the first 2 trips featuring steam engine 1218. Traveling down the old Norfolk and Western main line, a photo run-by was held at Pritchard. 1218 ran through this territory routinely during her career years ago. Through the coal country of West Virginia, 1218 went all the way to Yeager. She returned to Canova later that evening. The next day, August 8th, 1218 crossed the Great Ohio River Bridge and continued west to Portsmouth. This was a special trip for the passengers. Mr. Robert Clater was the engineer. On day 3, leaving Huntington, engine 1225 pulled a passenger train, as engine 765 pulled a hopper train both side by side to St. Albans on CSX rails. They later double-headed back that evening on the C&O main line. The next day, August 10th, the engines double-headed beyond St. Albans and Charleston and headed for the New River Gorge, the Grand Canyon of the East. Passing by rock cliffs and whitewater rafters, a photo run-by was held in Thurman, with final destination in Hinton. In 4 days, there were 4 great trips with 3 super steam locomotives. All in all, over hundreds of miles were covered in breathtaking scenery. What a great convention! While the train's 800 or so passengers took on local festivities, people of a true coal town, Yeager, West Virginia, went out to the tracks so they could see an old friend. This special friend used to visit them just about every day, and today in 1991, the 1218 is a big lady that Yeager has not forgotten. Her hooter whistle, steam sounds, and smells, well, it's music to the ear to those who stand beside her. Now turned around, old NNW signals beckon the 1218, back through the hills and tunnels to Canova. Day 2 featured the 1218 traveling to Portsmouth, Ohio, but days 3 and 4 included 2 different steam engines on different rails, and yet 2 exciting trips yet to come in the 1991 convention. There were many things to do. Other highlights of the convention included a riverboat cruise on the West Virginia Belle. This 4-deck sternwheeler has 2 dining and dancing levels, with souvenir shop and large observation decks. After dinner, there was time to enjoy the ride up the Ohio River. Passengers were allowed to enter the captain's quarters and watch how the captain maneuvered the boat around turns and past other boats. After sundown, the surroundings created a whole new world. This was a way of travel long ago to Pittsburgh, Wheeling, New Orleans, and Baton Rouge. But it was soon time to get back on the train. After all, that's what the convention was all about. And soon folks heard the cry of 2 Berkshire locomotives running side by side to a town called St. Albans. The highlight of the convention for many was the last trip on August 10th, 1991, through the scenic New River Gorge, as seen here from Hawk's Nest Lookout Point. The Hawk's Nest Dam below feeds water through a tunnel under the mountain to a steel plant at Alloy. The route also crosses under the New River Gorge Bridge, which is 876 feet high. Huntington was a great place for a convention. There was always lots of rail activity going on, with many different railroads using the tracks near the station area. But no matter how busy things got, you could always spot a fellow Roanoke chapter member somewhere. Who are these people? Excitement grew on the last day as Nickel Plate Road 765 and Pierre Marquette 1225 warmed up for the day's big trip. The station platform was full of different items to see, including coaches from the Norfolk and Western and some from the Roanoke chapter. A restored Nickel Plate Road caboose was on display, as was this Western Maryland painted unit and this new CSX engine. The moment arrived, and the two Berkshires eased their train out of Huntington Station. As you can see, it's apparent everybody had a good time on this trip. Upon reaching the town of Hinton, passengers were treated well. One entire street was closed and a huge outdoor fair was held. Even the flag was waving with a locomotive on it. It was a great summer day to sit back and relax. This small town put on one big show. But there was the ride home, including a photo run by in Hinton. Arrival back into Huntington was way after midnight, and it seems there were a few who took a nap along the way. The year continued to move along, and on September 14, 1991, members of the Roanoke chapter helped commemorate the 100th anniversary of the opening of the Salem station. Chapter member Bill Arnold led this project with great success. Over 500 visitors came to see the station. Special postcards, open house ceremonies, and displays topped it off. And outside, John Garrett showed us his skill on a strange bike of some sort. Not to mention a different type of outfit as well.
Yeah, okay, great. Photography by Carl Orange. We never rode by Central.
The Salem Station, celebrating 100 years in 1991. Our next story takes place in October, and you have to take a little drive out of Roanoke to get to where it happened. It's a place called Green Cove, south of Marion, Virginia. Not far from White Top Mountain, elevation over 5,000 feet, lies Green Cove, once a station stop on the Abingdon branch going to West Jefferson, North Carolina. Veteran rail photographer O. Winston Link took this stunning photograph in the 50s. By the 70s, the line was gone, but the station stood through it all. And today, thanks to some restoration efforts from some very dedicated people, the station was officially rededicated at 2 p.m. October 6th, 1991. The Roanoke Valley Central Volunteers, led by David Helmberg, got all the necessary things in place to make the Virginia Creepers Little Depot look like it did a long time ago. This day was rather cold, with the fall colors adding a nice backdrop. The Park Service has seen to it that the station is open on weekdays to visitors to the Mount Rogers area. A lot of people came here to see the reopening ceremonies and to see a person who was quite famous and who came down on this day from New York State. They came to see Mr. O. Winston Link. Chapter member Josh Seish captures the moments of Mr. Link just arriving, and he walks around the depot that he photographed many years ago. Outside, Mr. Link met friends and swapped old stories. And there was Maud and her old sled. It was fun to be around this man. He's very funny.
You're going to get him, you're going to send me a friend.
Well, I might. I just might be talked into that.
Take the lens cap off.
It was time for speakers, and Chris Helmer describes how the restoration process took place.
I'd also like to thank the Forestry Service for letting us do this project. Anyone can come and lay track. We take it as an honor that people would actually want us to do their work. We basically took the track that Norfolk Southern gave, we took the stone, we put it all together, tried to do our best. Saw that it's just not right. There's something missing. The road still stood as if there was no track. So now we have a reminder that there was track here, and as far as the people who live here know, there always will be track here. There's signs there now saying the railroad's still crossing there. Further, we put a motor car and a trailer, which many men ran up and down this line, clearing the landslides, clearing the rock debris. We figured that those should be here, and they are.
The moment everybody had been waiting for. Mr. O. Winston Lake.
It was the picture of the horse moored in front of the station that has traveled all over the world and is on exhibition in galleries and museums in Paris and London, New York and San Francisco, Philadelphia and Washington and New York. And it's become a worldwide appreciated image of the beautiful countryside and has a lot of meaning to it. I just thought I'd tell you a couple of things about it and how it was made, because it's so unusual that it was made at such a right instant of time. I had two cameras. There were 4x5 view cameras set up on tripods right over here, right out that way. And they were wired together so that one switch would fire both. And one camera had black and white film and the other had color. Color at the time was the high speed rating of 24. ASA 24 is all we had. Now you have 1,000. But I was waiting just for the engine to get in the right place. When the engine is in the right place, the horse bowed his head, and I got it. 2 shots, one black and white and one color, and there was no more. There was only one shot of each. There wasn't a matter of, like today we would have a motor drive camera. You could have shot a whole roll of 36 images in that time. But then the horse might not have bowed his head. So we were pretty lucky. I was luckier than the guy, a friend of mine who was a photographer in international news photos back in the 30s, and he was supposed to cover the arrival of the Hindenburg in Lakehurst. And he was in the bar when it blew up.
We would like to thank the RBC volunteers for making the Green Cove project possible. Rick Rader, Mark Cox, Steve Smith, Chris Helmer, David Helmer, Don Page, Robin Sherman, and Josh Cease. It's time now for the 1991 Roanoke Railway Festival, October 11th, 12th, and 13th. Sit back and enjoy these beautiful fall-colored trips.
Roanoke, Virginia, once nicknamed Alamo of Steam, as the Norfolk and Western Railway's mighty steam engines held out longer than the rest. Times have changed, and the Roanoke chapter of the National Railway Historical Society sees to it that the sights and sounds of steam railroading are preserved for future generations. Come ride the train in Roanoke, October 12th and 13th. A public service announcement of the Roanoke chapter of the NRHS, proudly preserving a part of Roanoke's history.
The 1218 departs Roanoke on time for Walton. What a cold October morning. Chapter member Bill Mason aims his camera at what could be a page from history.
Get on those things and dress up, put white shirts and ties on. And they used to sing the craziest thing in the world. And they said, no, you know very good now when they get where they're going, they're going to be all dirty.
Dirty as can be.
There she comes.
Yes, she comes, man.
There she got that 1218. Yeah.
Look at got a little white coming up there.
Look at his horn.
That's a whistle. Whistle.
Whoa.
good shot of Sam in it.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be as small as I can.
You're in the camera. Oh, young man.
Day 2 of the Railway Festival. 1218 and train depart Roanoke on a round trip to Bluefield, West Virginia, highest point on the Norfolk and Western Main Line. The coaling tower stands today, but the passenger depot is now gone. 1218 turns around here and pulls the rear of the train back to Roanoke, while passengers took in the festivities provided by Main Street Bluefield Incorporated. The year was coming to an end. The trips were over, but November saw the election of officers for the upcoming year. Gary Gray became president and Bill Arnold vice president. Along with them, a couple of new faces to the board as well. It is this group that faces the challenges ahead for 1992. Finally, December, and the chapter's Christmas banquet was held on the 15th in the Jefferson Club. Guest speaker was Mr. Mark Smith, editor and publisher of Locomotive and Railway Preservation magazine. Looking back, a lot happened in 1991. Before we go, let's give a special round of thanks to John Garrett for keeping those passenger cars running. We'll see you next year.